Well, happy Monday morning to you. 6 a.m. here, Morning JOX, Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell, and I know there's a lot of people out there that this is probably one of the better Mondays that you had, or reaction Mondays here in the college football season. Of course, I'm talking about you if you're an Alabama fan because, whew, Alabama gave you, I really don't know what more you could have asked for to see from the Crimson Tide this weekend down in Baton Rouge. It was a night game in Death Valley. It was a playoff elimination game. It was do or die. This was for the legacy of Kalen DeBoer, I guess, in some people's eyes. And he answered the challenge, I would say, as well as Jalen Milroe. Seems like the bye week definitely got some things straightened out for the Crimson Tide. Seems like some guys were healthy because for 2 years in a row now, Jalen Milroe, there's been no answer for him when he faces off against LSU. And, we talked about last week of, man, you look what happened last year and he had 155 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. And, surely that's not going to be able to work again. Surely they're going to find ways to limit what he's able to do with his legs. And all he did was top his performance that he had last year. As Jalen Milroe had 12 carries for 185 yards and 4 touchdowns. He averaged 15.4 yards per carry. Just let that sink in. 15.4 yards per carry. Didn't really need him a lot in the passing game. 12 of 18, 109 yards. Not a whole lot going there. You had a couple shots to Ryan Williams. Jam Miller was actually your best receiver on the day, or at least the most productive. And it was bully ball, or as Alabama fans like to call it was the return of joyless murder ball, which it's outside the Missouri game. It's been a little bit since we've seen something like that. So I'm feeling great this morning, Damian. I see you're repping your Ole Miss shirt, attaching yourself to a new bandwagon already. I see how it is. But what did you think over the weekend as you're watching Alabama and LSU and Alabama just essentially dominating the Tigers down there at night in Death Valley?
It brought back memories of last season, as when Jalen Milroe runs the ball. One, you couldn't stop Marcel Reed a couple weeks ago in Texas A&M. And then you go back, Lenore Sellers was able to run over you for a little bit in South Carolina. Like, you've already given us 2 recipes to show that you weren't ready for a quarterback run. And then you had Jalen Milroe walking into Death Valley in that situation. Like, to me, it was something that Alabama fans needed to see of, all right, we can commit to running the football and having success with it. And you got the full gamut of Jalen Milroe. He wasn't asked to go out there and be, Tom Brady in the pocket. We're going to have quarterback design runs. This is what your specialty is. And then LSU still couldn't find a way to stop it. And defensively, I knew Garrett Nussmeier would have a couple turnovers. I felt those coming. But as far as watching Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson, just the way that this game was, you could have played this game at 11 o'clock on Saturday, 2:30. It could have been SEC after dark. It didn't matter when you played this ball game. Alabama laid belt to ass to LSU, and there's no other way around it. And I think for LSU, it's Brian Kelly. You could tell on the sideline he was frustrated. He didn't really know what to do defensively. Coach Baker, he's just like, Coach, I don't know. And the looks that we were getting of him on the sideline, I think it was some of the most entertaining football that we've seen. One from Alabama just completely dominating LSU at every single level, and the fact that you're doing it at the right time in the month of November. This is the pivotal point of, okay, can you really start to separate yourself as being one of the 12 best teams in college football? And I think Alabama showed that up on Saturday night.
Yeah, whatever. I'll say it. I'm prepared to regret this, and you can use it against me in the future if you want to. But that team that we saw, especially with just how weird this season of college football has been, I understand there's no guarantee that that's the version of Alabama you're getting the rest of the way. I think people are, it's hard to erase some of the struggles you had earlier in the year from your mind. But if that is the version of Alabama that we're going to get moving forward, I mean, that team can win the national championship. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship. I'm not saying they're the best team in college football and they should be the number one team in America. But I mean,
that's the recipe to get it
that
done.
right there. Yeah. I mean, you can compete with anybody. That was the closest you've seen to Alabama looking the way that they did in the first half against Georgia. And it looked different, right? You didn't have a bunch of turnovers right off the bat. Now they came over the course of the game. And it wasn't, Ryan Williams making crazy play after crazy play. It was, you're just smash mouth football, right? You're just running it down their throat and they can't stop you. But if you can do that moving forward, because again, that's what people have been wanting to see, right? Is being able to run the football consistently. And I know, Jam and Justice didn't have, the craziest days on the ground, but they did what they needed to do to mix it up, because why would you have taken the ball out of Jalen Milroe's hands on Saturday, right? Like that, that was the definition of taking what the defense will give you. And if they're going to keep giving you the quarterback run, then you're going to take that when your quarterback's the best athlete on the field. And, but as you were talking about on the defense, man, I was so impressed with what you got defensively. We're able to sack Nussmeier a couple times, which hasn't happened a lot this year. And, even just some of the little things like, you go back and for the way that game started. So, I mean, first off, obviously for Alabama, you have the false start and you're like, here we go again. Like you can't even get the first snap off.
Settle it down.
And then that works itself out. You start feeling pretty good, but then you have the big kick return for LSU, and then Durham has the 45-yard run, which Damani Jackson chasing him down and tackling him ultimately ended up being a huge part of the game, because I think Alabama getting that stop there early when you're like, all right, it's about to be 7-7, like Alabama threw a punch, but now, LSU's punching right back, to get that stop. And for that to happen because Damani ran and chased him down was impressive. But after that run, you had there very early on from Durham a 45-yard run. LSU ran the ball 23 times for 59 yards.
Yep.
So, I mean, you essentially did as much damage on the ground for the next 50 whatever minutes as you did in the first 3 plays of the game, offensively speaking. So Alabama, I thought, did a great job of shutting down the run, and you could tell Nussmeier just didn't have it.
Nope.
There were a couple throws that he got. I will say the late touchdown that they had, that was a thing of beauty. But as Chris Stewart said on the Alabama broadcast, well, it'd be nice if that counted for something. But it looked nice.
Was that Chris Paul video? Saying Chris Paul knocks down a 3 to cut the lead.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Cut the lead to 42. Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
That's what it was. But I mean, I thought the defense did such a good job overall of being able to take advantage of opportunities. The loss in interception was obviously huge, but even, some of the throws late in the game, like the interception that Hubbard got, I mean, that's just Garrett Nussmeier for you.
Exactly.
Right there. And that's why if you're an Alabama fan going into the game, that's why you felt
he was going to serve
like you had a pretty good chance, because you knew that was going to happen. And it happens in a crucial moment in the red zone. And then again, late in the game when it's just like, all right,
Man, I'm so glad you brought up Damani Jackson. The battles that him and Kyron Lacey were having out there on the field, Damani Jackson stepped up to the challenge. Mm-hmm. If there is, in the lineage of Alabama DBs, and especially at the corner position, and we know how valuable that position has been over the past couple seasons, having Coach Saban be kind of the ringleader of that secondary, he stepped up to the plate, looked Kyron Lacey square in the face, and was, big dog, you are not getting open on this one. You may have to play in the slot a little bit more. You may have to bounce around. But if you are on this side with numero uno, oh, no, sir, I'm winning this battle. And he did every single time. And Jahad Campbell probably had his best game in an Alabama uniform, because he was the best player on the field defensively. Oh, my gosh. In the box, he was going sideline to sideline. If you're an Alabama fan, I can understand why Conrad feels as confident as he does, because that team right there that played on Saturday night in Death Valley, that's going to be a hard team to beat. And I don't care if anybody that would have played Alabama on Saturday night. It kind of feels the same way with when Vandy beat Alabama. It didn't matter who was playing on the other side at that point. They was laying boot to ass to anybody at that point. And I do agree that collectively, offensively, defensively, at every single level, this game did not live up to what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a heavyweight fight in at least a little bit longer, but it felt that Alabama was always in control. I mean, you could say the weather didn't really have a factor, but it did, because once Alabama said, you know what, why throw this thing if we ain't got to? They ain't stopped us. They ain't stopped 4 yet in 2 years.
It was just the fact that, there were so many opportunities in that game, especially in the first half, where you're sitting there and you're like, all right, if LSU goes and scores a touchdown here, this game's going to be interesting again. And there were multiple opportunities where, they were able to hold them to 2 field goal tries early on, and that saves you. You had the interception from Lawson that was big. But then even there, late in the second quarter where Alabama's driving, it ends up not turning into anything because you have the penalties, and then it backs up the field goal, and then you have to punt. And it was just like, okay, they're starting to have some of these mental errors. Boom, next play, fumble. And
Yep.
you get Garrett Nussmeier to a strip sack, and you get the ball back. And it's just those kinds of things where it's, all right, that was an opportunity where LSU had some momentum, making Alabama make some mistakes. And, even while Alabama felt like they were dominating the game, you're like, man, all right, LSU can go score here, even it up, then they're going to get the ball to start the second half. And you saw where the Alabama team earlier in the year, you flash back to late in the first half against South Carolina, right? Where you're up 14-0, and then next thing you know, it's 14-12 going into halftime, and you're just kind of sitting there like, what the hell just happened? But they didn't give up those opportunities, and they were able to. There were just so many signs of, okay, this was a classic Alabama under Nick Saban type win where people are just, kind of down on Alabama a little bit, and then they go and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like they got some dudes. They got some dudes there. So yeah, I think that's the best game Alabama's played all year.
Yes.
From all around. I think that's one of the, I talked about last week. I thought what South Carolina did to Texas A&M might be the most impressive win I've seen in the SEC, and that would still be up there. But so would, Alabama. What Alabama did to LSU, that would be right up there, as well as what Ole Miss did this weekend. That was a bit of a surprise as well.
The SEC, as we know it,
chaos.
The carnage that has happened then in the season of 2024 is just it's going to have to be documented. Like the sit down documentary you have of the first year of the 16-team SEC. I don't think we were prepared for what was going on. If you would have told me, 5-6 years ago that, hey, at one point there's going to come a point in time where a Lane Kiffin coach team will be the most physical team in a matchup against Georgia and Kirby Smart, I call you crazy. That happened Saturday. Ole Miss, and I will be completely honest, I thought they could keep it respectful, but I didn't have a shadow of a thought in my mind that they could actually do it. I just didn't believe that Lane Kiffin could find a way to get it done. If you go back and watch that Ole Miss and Georgia matchup, Georgia didn't really stand a chance. And a lot of it was because of, the pressure that the Pete Golding-led defense of Ole Miss applied to Georgia. And Georgia looking shell-shocked at it. It's Carson Beck. That clip of Sam Darnold saying, I'm seeing ghosts?
Mm-hmm.
That's Carson Beck right now in 2024. I don't know what it is about what he's seeing on the defensive side, if the pressure's getting to him, of everything needs to be on the shoulders of 15. But Ole Miss, I came away so impressed. Because now I question what happened against Kentucky. What was going on in that game?
Mm-hmm.
And
I hope that is ultimately not what keeps them out of the college football playoff. But that is, that's probably their biggest obstacle now, because the rest of the schedule isn't that difficult. But
you have
that Kentucky win or loss looks worse
every
single week.
Every single week.
Every week.
But Ole Miss does knock off Georgia 28-10, and Jackson Dart, stumbles out the gate a little bit early on, interception, gets hurt. Austin Simmons comes in, and it's like, okay, well, the backup is going to be just fine. The future of Ole Miss at the quarterback position, I have no worries about.
Watching, and I know it's different. I get it. The different players, different offenses, people develop differently. But if you just watch, I hate to throw somebody into the bus, but if you watched Florida this weekend, and
Ooh.
I understand he's the third string quarterback technically, but he's your starter now. But you watch somebody like that who was recruited to an SEC school, and I understand they thought he wouldn't have to play this year, but that looks like a kid who looks horrified to be on a college football field right now. And then you got this kid coming in for Ole Miss, and I'm sitting there going, well, if Jackson Dart comes out of the locker room, did they even put him back in the
Right.
straight up? Like that's how, because I mean, it was just boom, 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 right down the field.
There was no
Yes,
drop off.
yes, and he deserves so much credit because that game could have gotten out of hand very quickly.
Yes.
With how it started with the injury and the interception, and then Georgia scoring right away, and he saved that game for Ole Miss, in my opinion.
Yes. And talk about being a quote unquote placeholder. And you go out there
Next
and
man up, baby.
Yeah. And Lane Kiffin hadn't even looked at, he hadn't even changed the playbook script or nothing. Oh no, these are the plays we're gonna run. We're gonna run them with you.
Yeah,
in
no,
well
it's
too.
not. No, 3 handoffs in a row. Nope. Nope.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, the SEC weekend, this has been absolutely awesome. Of course, it's time for your reaction as well. 205-834-9450. Your text messages, your calls. We're going to hear from some coaches over the weekend as well and recap what went down. Alabama knocking off LSU, Ole Miss knocking off Georgia. How about South Carolina beating up on Vanderbilt, a team that we didn't expect that to see? We want to hear from you. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 621 here on Morning JOX. JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order on this Monday, November 11th, as we observe Veterans Day. Thank you to all our servicemen and women who have made the decision to support and represent our country as we continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have. And we definitely want to take our time out to thank each and every one of you for the commitment to serve and just everything that y'all do for us to keep this nation as strong as it is. And of course, what an exciting weekend of SEC football. Of course, Alabama knocks off LSU 42-13 down in Baton Rouge. They tell us that, the night game in Death Valley, one of the hardest venues, they brought back the live tiger. If you watched College Game Day, you saw Pat McAfee lead Nick on multiple occasions, which hopefully you weren't watching with the kids and they didn't have the subtitles on as far as what was said during sheesh. Listen, I enjoy College Game Day. It was fun. The Kirk Herbstreit segment with dealing with the loss of his dog Ben, I didn't think it was going to get to me as much as it did, but man, it was a wonderful tribute.
Hearing him try to get into the segment was the hardest part.
That was tough.
It
was tough.
That was brutal. It was good to see though that he if you didn't know, I know some people were like kind of, I guess, mad at him, like, you're trying to replace Ben. Like, he has other dogs.
Right.
He did not just go and buy a dog the other day. He has other dogs if you follow him on social media. So he did get to have one of his other dogs, I guess, that is now going to be his companion on the road. So that was good. But yeah, we all knew that one was gonna get the heartstrings early Saturday morning.
And it did. And I think that one, like I said, the Pat McAfee and Nick Saban addition to College Game Day, and you can tell Coach Saban is getting extremely comfortable. He drops a couple 4 letters here and there that it's just
their
Coach.
Whole conversation about the tin horn and like how it would work. It was that was gold.
It was, and it's a fun thing. It does get you more started. And to be honest, I didn't, even throughout the day Saturday, I had a feeling that Alabama, it would be kind of one of the old school Alabama games where it's a fight all the way to about the fourth quarter, and then they just start executing at a higher level. They're able to lay up on these guys and just really start to make their way. But just complete domination in the run game. It was just very similar to last year. I don't know. At some point, with the way that modern college football is, you should always have the thought of, let's kind of have a QB spy, because we do know the athletes that are playing the quarterback position now. We need to make sure that we have all eyes on them if they leave the pocket. But when it's something different, when it's a quarterback design run straight at you and you can't even, Four is getting the ball and you still can't stop it.
No, and I think that's got to be the most frustrating part, is not only was this essentially the same thing that happened to you last year when you played this exact same team and this exact same quarterback, but even over the course of the game, you weren't able to adjust. You weren't able to fix it. Make him throw the football, right? Force him to play to the areas of his game that aren't necessarily his strengths, right? And I will say, I thought that Milroe's decision-making when he did throw the ball, I thought it was excellent. And I understand there were a lot of checkdowns and things like that, but he was making good decisions. He wasn't holding on to the ball too long. You look at, really the only play that I looked at and went, man, he wish you had that one back, was the throw to Emmanuel Henderson that he just completely overthrew him.
Yeah.
And that that would have been a touchdown. You did have the Ryan Williams play where, I think Ryan Williams would admit he probably should have caught that if it wasn't raining. I think we all agree he would have caught that for a touchdown. And that would have been a huge play early on in the game. But, there weren't really things that I looked at Jalen Milroe and saw, man, you kind of left that out there on the table. It was about as flawless of a game as you could play. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about that as a defense. But, he averaged 15 yards per carry. Like, I can't help but feel like maybe there were some adjustments that could have been made. But also, to Alabama's credit, I mean, I thought the offensive line played well, even when, Jaden Roberts got banged up and he went out and Vandermark came in. I thought they did a good job. Again, you had the false start on Proctor early, but other than that, you had the one bad snap from Brailsford where it looked like he just kind of lost the ball. And but again, like these are little nitpicky things that when you win by 29 points on the road against LSU, like I'll take them.
Yep.
I'm not going to be too upset or lose any sleep over those miscues. So it was crazy, man. And I'm just, you just wonder now for LSU how much. And again, I think Brian Kelly's a great coach. I think that if something were to happen to him at LSU, that there are a number of schools that would love to have him as their head football coach. But you just start to wonder, when does the fan base start to get a little frustrated? Because you've now, again, we've talked about this before, but you come into LSU, you beat Alabama that first year, you make it to Atlanta. Granted, doesn't go super well when you play Georgia, but you make it to the SEC championship game your first year. Now, last year you have the Heisman Trophy winner, can't win more than 9 games because your defense is terrible. Now this year, I like Nussmeier, but he's incredibly turnover prone. And you went and spent a lot of money to improve your defense, and it has improved. But again, you're in another year where your ceiling is going to be 9-3, and you're going to be on the outside looking in at the college football playoff. I mean, again, this is a similar conversation we would have been having about Alabama if the game went differently. But, I'm just saying 9 wins is nice for a lot of schools, but for LSU, and now in the 12-team playoff era where
you still can't get in,
the LSUs of the world feel like they should probably be in every year. I'm just saying, moving into next year, I know, the Hugh Freezes of the world and the Sam Pittmans of the world and the Billy Napiers of the world, like they're all on the hot seat. And I just kind of wonder where Brian Kelly is in that conversation, because it's not too hot right now, I wouldn't think, but he turned the seat warmers on in the car.
Yeah, it's definitely up, especially the way you went out there and performed. It's something different if you maybe, lost on a last second field goal. You understand, okay, we're right there. But to have a team, and it's not like LSU hadn't beaten Alabama since he's been there. The first year he got there, they beat Alabama, beat them at home. But now it's
you couple this with what we saw against Texas A&M the game before that. Yeah.
I guess LSU's defense is allergic to running quarterbacks because obviously they can't tackle.
I mean, 3 weeks ago, we were sitting here going, man, could LSU and A&M be in Atlanta playing for the SEC champ? The way that the seasons had played out for them both. And now, Texas A&M's going to have that chance. But LSU, it's the way that you've lost, because the USC loss doesn't look very good anymore.
Nope.
But again, it's a season opener. I can still give you a break on that one. It was a competitive game. But to now, for 6 straight quarters in SEC play, you have gotten dog walked. I mean, it has not even been competitive. Yep.
Yeah, times are tough down there in Baton Rouge right now. And somebody texted and brought up a great point in the situation during the game. He's like, the throwing the trash on the field is getting ridiculous. How would y'all handle this issue? One, it was a face mask. You could look at the replay.
It's not the worst face mask I've ever seen, but it was a face mask.
It was definitely a face mask. You could tell, I understand you're frustrated because you're finally getting to play on a big down, on a big third down stop. But it was obviously a face mask. And to stop the game the way that people had, like, to me, the fans are starting to get a little out of hand with it because, one, Texas was crazy. Then we saw Clemson try to do it. It's not going to have the same effect anymore. Now you're just doing it for show. Because, one, it was definitely a penalty. It was definitely a face mask. And two, just enjoy the damn game. Referees make bad calls every single play, every single game.
That wasn't one of them, though.
Exactly. That wasn't one where you're booing. No, you need to be booing Brian Kelly and your defensive coordinator for not having a game plan to stop Jalen Milroe's legs for 2 years in a row where he's running up and down the field. You realize the quarterback, like you said, was averaging 15 yards a carry. It wasn't the referee's fault. You may want to boo your defensive coordinator for whatever he was calling up defensively because they had no answer for anything that Jalen Milroe was able to do with his legs on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought late in that game, Jalen Milroe, it's like, man, you've been running a lot. You might be tired. And then oh, boom, 72-yard touch. Like you're just they clearly had given up. And I mean, hell, the stadium was empty in the fourth.
Oh
Think
my
about that.
gosh.
The fourth quarter of an LSU Alabama game, and the stadium was
Empty.
damn near empty because that's how embarrassing it was. But yeah, the throwing crap on the field. I mean, as if you watch the game, I mean, you heard Herb Street, call everybody a clown essentially, and it's embarrassing. It is, and it's set again. It goes back to the Texas thing, and that set such a dangerous precedent where even moving forward, if it never happens again, you have now given people an example of, well, if we cause enough of a scene, enough of a ruckus, things can change. At least, as awful as it was at Texas, at least in that situation, the call was egregious, and it should never have been called in the first place. But for stuff like this to continue happening because it got overturned in one game, they have to get a handle on it. And I don't know if, again, it's like the storm in the field thing, right? They start finding teams, and it's still happening all the time. Like it happened multiple times this weekend. I don't know if there's a financial punishment you can put on the university, but that crap needs to stop. And I mean, you even go and look at, I don't know how many people stayed up for Utah and BYU on Saturday night, but the
Man.
way that game ended, and then you have the Utah AD going to the presser after the game and
Straight to
calling out the
business.
officiating. And I wish we weren't in the Big 12 anymore because we got robbed of that game essentially. And you go back and you watch it and you're like, I get it. It sucks. You were in a position to win that game late, and you had a defender make a boneheaded move and hold a guy that wasn't even going to be a factor in the play, probably. But it was the right call. It sucks. I get it. But I just, if we're going to get upset about things, let's get upset about things that, are worthy of being upset about.
Yep.
An official calling a penalty in a crucial moment, and it's an accurate penalty call. Be mad at your team. Be mad at your players. Be mad at the coaches. Don't be mad at the officials and try to trash the field. And it's just an embarrassing look for the university. College football as a whole. It's gross.
Yeah, and then another sidebar in that game when Brian Kelly got frustrated that Kane Womack was still sending pressure late in the fourth.
Why are you leaving Garrett Nussmeier in the game?
Thank you. That was my whole argument. It's, well, your starters are still in there going against my twos. I still have a defensive game plan I need to operate. I need to run.
And that fired me up so much because if you remember last year, Brian Kelly was so upset that Jaden Daniels, when he got hurt in that game and got taken out, and saying, Alabama was being too aggressive and they were, trying to hurt the quarterback essentially. And now you're going to leave your quarterback in when he's having a terrible game. You're down by 30 plus late in the fourth quarter. And I get you want to say, hey, we didn't get shut out, or we scored a touchdown against Alabama, but yeah, no, miss me with that, man. You're going to keep your guys in. You don't care about them getting hurt, and then you're going to get mad that the other team's still trying. Like,
stop me. Stop me.
Mm-mm.
Stop me. You had 60. You got a full 60-minute game, big dog. We coaching from the time the game kicks off to somebody lines up in victory formation. I have no issue with Kane. If anything, Kane should have gone engage 8. Just send everybody. Send the dogs after him. Nah, man, I'm with you. Miss me with that stuff. 205-834-9450. We'll continue with your text message, your calls on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:39 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5, Monday, November the 11th. We appreciate all of our veterans here on this Veterans Day edition of Morning JOX. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, and of course you as well. 205-834-9450. Just getting your reaction for games over the weekend. Of course, Alabama knocks off LSU 42-13. Ole Miss with a convincing upset over Georgia 28-10. Texas knocks off Florida 49-17. Thought that game was going to be a little bit closer, and then the game kicked off, and you realize quickly that Texas, we appreciate they kind of gave Billy Napier like, hey, appreciate you keeping your job, big dog. Hopefully everything happens, have success for you in 2025. But still got a game against us this morning, but they handled their business against Florida. Tennessee knocks off Mississippi State 33-14. Nico Iamaleava goes down with an injury there in that game. Did not complete it. Missouri squeaks by Oklahoma 30-23.
That game was
actually pretty good. At the end,
the last 5 minutes were very good.
Yes. Now up until that point, probably just flip back and forth. You weren't really missing too much.
It's like there were, I think, 4 touchdowns in the last 4 minutes of the game or something. Then or Missouri wins on a scoop and score. Like,
yeah, man, they found a way to get it done. And if you heard Coach Drinkwitz, they're still in the playoff hunt. And yep, he said playoff.
They're not, but that's a very nice sentiment for him to share to kind of rally the troops. I thought that was, yeah, yeah.
Sure, exactly. It's like, all right, Coach, you're not.
I was about
wrong,
to say,
but
you tell him, yeah, okay, buddy, pat him on the head and send him on his way. Just let him think it.
It's the opposite of what Kirby Smart says to his team about, y'all ain't gonna be 7. The world told y'all ain't gonna be 7-5, big dog. The world told y'all stink.
Oh, after Saturday, I mean, those players might not be coming back. Like, he might have just been like, no, the season's over. We're just, nope.
Just go ahead and hang it up.
We're gonna close it up. How about in the SEC though? I know it's football season. We kind of forget some of these other sports, but how about Auburn basketball?
Oh, you're talking about the plane trip.
Oh, well, what happened after the plane trip?
Hey, I can't even lie. Auburn basketball, what you did to Houston over the weekend, that was impressive. That was impressive at every single level because you kept fighting, you kept clawing, and there at the end, being able to pull that victory out on the road, it was Auburn fans, you should be excited about the basketball season. If you want to flush the football season down the drain, so be it. But you're going to have some fun in basketball season. If that team plays like they did the entire way, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure. Yeah,
and I mean just the way that game went, because I mean Houston's a team that they just like to grind you down over the course of a game, and for Auburn to have a tiny deficit at halftime and then to come out and outscore Houston 46-36 in the second half. Was really, really impressive. Yeah, I mean, Pettiford was, the big star of the show, 5 of 8 from 3. So now we have back-to-back games. It was Miles Kelly in the opener against Vermont. Now you have Pettiford here against Houston, kind of bolstering Auburn from 3. And it was, I mean, you got 20 from Janai Broom, about what you would expect there, 20 and 9 from him. You get double digits from Johnson off the bench as well. It was just I was so impressed with the grit that Auburn showed in that second half to be able to come back and, essentially kind of dominate the game there for the last 20 minutes or so. But I mean, we've talked about it with Alabama for years, but stacking your schedule with these tough non-conference games, especially early on it helps the resume, but it's also a good measuring stick for where you are. And that is a pretty big test that you just passed with flying colors if you're Auburn, and obviously dealing with the unusual travel situation as well to not let that affect you.
Yeah, just a little adversity. Just a little adversity, that's all.
Yeah, and just I will just say this is the first time in my life, either covering sports or just being a fan growing up, where I've ever heard audio from an airplane pilot about a sports team and having to land a flight because of something going on. I've never, like when I'm on Twitter and it's like, oh, somebody got the airline pilot audio of the Auburn basketball flight. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing that someone could have and share, but okay, we have it. It's just, it's bizarre, man. It is bizarre.
It is, but hey, they didn't let it affect their play on the court. They go out there and knock off Houston over the weekend, 74-69. So a lot of positive vibes coming from Auburn on the basketball front. Let's hear your reaction from the weekend. 205-834-9450. The Jocks text line and phone lines are open. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's talk to our buddy Don this morning. Wants to talk some ball. What's going on, Don?
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing? And guys, thank you for the kind words about my basketball game Saturday night. I know a lot of people didn't watch it because of all the football, but just an incredible game. But I need to go over a playoff scenario thing with y'all. We got chaos in the SEC, guys. I just wrote it down and everything. You got six teams battling, and I want to know y'all's opinion. I think the SEC could get 4 teams in.
Yeah. I think that's a lock.
Okay, but the question I got, and I know you guys are keeping up with it, how do the tiebreakers work? I mean, I know how it will come down for the playoff rankings, but for the SEC championship, you got 6 teams battling for 2 spots, and how do the tiebreakers work, guys?
It's a long list of them, and I think it's common opponents in certain. I think average margin of victory against common opponents. There's a bunch of layers to it.
Yeah. So this is how it works so there's 1, 2, 3, 6 different tiebreakers. So it starts off obviously head to head. That's the first tiebreaker. Then you have record versus all common conference opponents.
Right.
So, whatever the 6-2 teams are, however you fared against, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Tennessee would be a big one for a lot of them. Alabama would be one.
Yeah.
A lot of them played South Carolina. Then you have the third tiebreaker is record against the highest ranked common conference opponents. So it's, I guess, how many of the top ranked teams you've beaten in the conference. Then you have the cumulative conference winning percentage of all of the opponents of the tied team. So essentially, who had the toughest schedule.
Right.
Then you have capped relative scoring margin versus all conference opponents. So I guess style points is essentially how I take that. And then the last one is the best one. And if they get through all of those and they still can't make a decision, it is a random draw.
Oh, my goodness. But the way here's my scenario on this. I think Georgia's going to beat Tennessee, so that would kind of
whoa. What makes you think Georgia? What makes you think Georgia? What has Georgia done to make you believe they're going to beat Tennessee?
Well, number one, there, Mr. Hype or Disciple, is Nico going to play?
Well, if he doesn't, if Ole Miss can do it, I have a strong feeling Tennessee can get it done. Don't matter who's in.
Well, if they were playing Damon, buddy, look, trust me, I'll be rooting for Tennessee and everything because of my friend Constance and everything. I will be cheering for Tennessee, of course, but the matchup. This is Georgia's probably one of their first games back at home in a long, long time, and I think that's going to be the difference. Damien, is where they're playing at. If they were playing at Tennessee, I would definitely pick Tennessee, but I think Kirby and Georgia are going to put it together. Even though I don't like Kirby and I won't be rooting for Tennessee, I'm just saying that I think Georgia will beat them.
Go ahead.
Okay, but that, to me, what I'm trying to say, Conrad, is that the head-to-head I think is going to be thrown out. Now, to me, Ole Miss, for who they got left, I think Ole Miss is going to finish 10-2. And by the way, Conrad, that y'all just whooped their butt. Congratulations on your victory Saturday night, sir.
I appreciate it, Don. Appreciate you calling in, buddy. It was a good Saturday to be an Alabama fan for sure. But want to get more of your reaction here on Morning Jocks when we come back. More of your texts, more of your calls. Keep it locked here to Jocks 94.5.
6:52 here on this Veterans Day edition of Morning JOX, JOX 945. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order here for a few more moments. And again, we appreciate all of our veterans, servicemen and women that continue to put their life on the line for us as we continue to hold these freedoms that we have here in the United States of America. We do appreciate each and every single one of you for paying the ultimate sacrifice to keep us here happy and safe. As we continue to recap what went over the weekend in SEC play, Alabama knocking off LSU 42-13 in a not so competitive matchup. And of course, getting your reactions here on the JOX phone line. Let's go back to the phone lines rather quickly. Let's go to our buddy Montreal. Let's toss some ball with us. What's going on this morning, Montreal?
Man, how y'all doing this morning, man?
Man, ain't no complaining this Monday, man. What's happening?
I ain't gonna lie to y'all. See, my football head been turning. And I actually called the Ole Miss upset over Georgia because if you want to go back in previous history and just look at games, it's like they're not the same team. They haven't been playing up to the same standard. Like, and honestly, in my opinion, Ole Miss flipped a switch versus Arkansas because I wasn't expecting them to blow Arkansas out like that.
Right.
So I told one of my buddies, we actually made a bet on the game of work. I said, if Georgia they play the same game they played last week against Ole Miss has something to prove and play for. And that's exactly what they went out there and did.
Exactly.
So with that being said, I called that upset. But I hate to say this, Damian, I don't know what Tennessee quite is. I'm still thinking that Georgia, just because it's in Georgia, they might get it done. Coming off a loss, practice is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit more upsets. I think A&M is going to beat Texas.
Okay. I don't think, and hey, Conrad called that over the preseason. That was one of his bold predictions. He think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, Texas looked pretty good on Saturday though. So
yeah.
That's gonna be a good one though. And if you're an Alabama fan, you need to be rooting for Georgia to beat Tennessee if you want to make it to Atlanta. I know there's some Alabama fans that don't want to make it to Atlanta, but after Saturday, I think you might.
Hey, you want to keep this momentum going. Why everybody already calling Tennessee ain't got no chance? Like, wait a minute.
Well, we got to see how bad Nico's boo-boo is. That determines a lot.
Yeah, man. I think that's just a precautionary thing. I think he should be locked and loaded, ready to go. Now, if he doesn't play, Dylan Sampson, hope you got your inhaler with you because you're going to be getting your touches. Can't say the same thing about Jarquez Hunter for Auburn, but we know Dylan Sampson's going to get the ball. They just knocked off Mississippi State 33-14, man. This is what they do. But I'm interested to see where this team goes, man, because Georgia, hey, they just shook the foundation with Ole Miss, man, losing by 18 points. Lane Kiffin gets a big one.